Hey Crestwood, happy Wednesday to you. Hope you guys are doing well, enjoying slightly warmer weather out there. I do love seeing the sun shining. That always lifts my spirits, and I hope it does for you too. Honored to bring you this devotional for this Wednesday, February 26th. Boy, exciting time. So, thinking today about enemies. I'm reading this really interesting book right now. It's called How to Have an Enemy. Righteous Anger and the Work of Peace. Melissa Florer-Bixler is the author. I've only read a couple chapters, but it's already sort of blowing my mind in the idea of what does it mean to have an enemy, and how does that shape who we are as people of faith and people who seek to live out the gospel. One of the things I find really interesting so far in the book is that she talks about how we often misplace our righteous anger onto a person as an enemy. And in doing so, that allows us to ignore the systemic forces that create the reasons that we are angry in the first place. It's easy to target one person and say, well, that person is the target of my anger. But usually there are systemic forces that are at work for whom that person may just be a figurehead or a lightning rod. But it's more important that we focus on the systemic reasons that lead to our righteous anger and address those as people of faith, because we are not called to have enemies. As you know very well, Jesus calls us to love our enemies. Not easy to do. I think that's more aspirational than anything, but each day we are called to do that. And so how do we have our put our anger in the right place towards the systemic forces, but also in ways that make a tangible difference in this world? I think we had a great example of this past Sunday evening at Crestwood. We hosted Jeff Herron from the city's Office of Homelessness Prevention and Intervention, and he shared with us over a very informative presentation about the issue of homelessness in Lexington. And some of the things he shared were just staggering about the number of people affected, the number of families, the number of kids, the challenge to fund any efforts to address homelessness. It really, for me, stirred up my righteous anger. But not towards any one person, right? More towards the system that we live in that has created such a socioeconomic gap in our communities that creates the issue of homelessness in the first place. There's such disparity that we have to struggle with. But it's hard to be angry at disparity, right? What do we do when we're faced with something so large and systemic that we don't even know how to begin to address it? Well, I think we listen to what Jeff had to say, and then we do what we did right after that. And that was we lined up a bunch of tables, and about 70 of us put together sandwiches for the Hope Mobile. That was an amazingly chaotic and exciting time as we all worked so hard to do this. I lost count, but I'm estimating it was over 1,000 bag lunches that we provided for the Hope Center. Now, one bologna sandwich isn't going to solve homelessness, right? The issue is so much bigger than anything we could begin to address. But that sandwich is going to make a difference to the person eating it. Right? And so I think the challenge for us is to take our righteous anger at the inequity of the world and to focus it in ways that not only address the immediate, but also address the systemic. So how do we both do the outreach of offering a sandwich and the advocacy of being a voice for those who are voiceless in our systems? I think that's the challenge that we face, and that's where this book, I hope, is going to help me to steer away from focusing on a particular person as a particular enemy, instead of focusing on the systems that have created these disparities and inequalities in the first place. I think as Christians, that's what we are called to do. We are called to continually be restless at this broken world, restless about the things that keep people separated from God and keep people from having the true shalom that God intends for us. And then to work towards making that happen, both in real, tangible ways, but also at the systemic level. That's something I hope our church can continue to grow into, is how can we use our voice to address the things in this world that are keeping this from being God's kingdom. There's always a way that we can play a role, be it making a sandwich, or attending a council meeting, listening to a presentation on what difference that we can make. I want to encourage you, Crestwood, to think about what are the things in this world that really stir up your righteous anger, and how are you putting that anger to good use, to work in addressing those situations. Maybe for you, the best way to address that is to make sandwiches for the Hope Mobile, because those are desperately needed. Maybe for you, it's being a part of the Shalom Social Justice team, where we can talk about how we as a church can address this. Whatever it is, I encourage you to focus your energy not on the enemies that you perceive in this world, but on the systems that make those enemies exist in the first place. That's where we start as people of faith to live out who God calls us to be. Let's make a difference today, Crestwood. God bless you.